Welcome back to ChatChit. Round 11 is over for the 2025 season. We now head into the bye rounds, starting in round 12. And unfortunately, we're seeing a pile-up of injuries, but we're seeing teams start to really define themselves. Some teams that were finals contenders before probably are no longer finals contenders. We're going to jump into our top 5 players of the round. So, Aiden, start us off with your number 5.
My number 5, I had Nick Martin. He put in a ridiculous performance against Richmond, and sometimes we don't like to acknowledge the players that have performances against the subpar teams. However, 2 goals and 35 touches sort of speaks for itself. Absolutely ran the game. Richmond couldn't get a hold of the Essendon midfield at all, and Martin was just allowed to float and go wherever he wanted in the field.
I got to see a bit of that game, or a lot of that game, and I've got Nick Martin at my number 2. Because I thought he was ridiculous. Often we, as Aiden says, we sort of rank teams down if they play against West Coast North or Richmond or Essendon. But Nick Martin was absolutely ridiculous. My number 5 was Ed Richards. And I think that this is like the 4th time in 5 weeks that I have him in my top 5.
You know what we really should do? We should give a ranking. Like, if you come in the top 5, you come first,
points,
you get 5 points, and then we come back to it at the end of the season.
We can absolutely do that at the end of the year. We'll put it all together because we've got them all in our notes or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be very fun to look at. But Ed Richards might not even get the 3 votes in this game, but I just have an affinity for the way this guy plays. I just don't really see him make mistakes. I think he's just like so level-headed, so clean, such a smooth mover. And yeah, I think he's like one of the top midfielders in the league for years to come.
I like it. I'll talk about him a little bit later in the program. I go to my number 4. Now, this guy just doesn't go away. Toby Green puts in performance after performance. It was a milestone game for him. There was Jeremy Cameron cheering for him in the crowd when he kicked that. I guess you could argue it was a sealer goal at the end. But 3 goals, 28 touches. He starts in centre bounce. He floats forward. No one's really sure if he's a small forward or medium-sized forward, but he plays tall. And he just seems to get it done every single week. I love what he's doing. I
had him at number 3, and I think something that the commentators have been talking about that I've noticed too is that in GWS's down run recently, Toby Green's been down too. And they talk about barometers. Toby Green is as big a barometer as there is in the league in terms of how he influences GWS. When they're winning games and firing, he is so up and about and sort of like an unstoppable little force in their forward line or through their midfield. And that's what he was this game, and they were back. Like, he was just involved in everything. 4 more score involvements than any other player. Touching the ball 28 times for 3 goals was phenomenal. My number 4, though, was Jordan Dawson. And I think we just need to take a second for some Jordan Dawson appreciation. I think he has potential to win Brownlows. I know he's very low in the betting odds at this point of this season, but he is such he could be a key position player, a key forward or a key back, and probably be an all-Australian level player at his best, and we have seen that he can do the same in the midfield. Such a dominant force, and you love to see him in good form because he's as good a kick as there is in the comp on top of everything else, and he was firing on all cylinders against West Coast.
He's the exact player that Sydney absolutely dream about.
And that we had.
Yes. I go to my number 3, and it's a guy that I don't know if you will have, but there's been rumours of him wanting to exit in the past few weeks, and that's Luke Jackson.
Yeah.
Dominant performances week after week now, and it's what happens is when he gets the solo rock, when Sean Darcy's injured
against Dante Vicentini.
I understand that, but we've seen when he gets the solo rock, the athleticism. He's got a similar build, a little bit bigger than Tom De Koning. The way he gets around the ground, can play in the forward line, but really follows up in the clearance as well. But a goal, 21, had the most score involvements in the game. Dominated the rock. I mean, with those freer midfielders around, all you got to do is find them, and they're gonna sort the rest out. But I really loved his follow-up work, and he was a big part of why Freo won this game.
Yep, I've already said my 3 and 2, so you keep rolling.
I'll just go straight in. My number 2 was Jeremy Cameron, who I assume is probably coming up for you, and he's charging towards another All-Australian. He's now leading the Coleman. I think, it's like 5 goals in back-to-back games, and not against weak opposition as well.
Yeah, and
it's the stuff he's doing in the game. I'll let you speak about it in a second, but 6 goals against a Western Bulldogs team that is playing extremely good football at the moment.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable what he's doing.
Well, yeah, he's not a bad football player. I do think he is one of 2 or 3 players in the competition that you can argue are the best AFL player in the world. It's guys like Jeremy Cameron, Marcus Bontempelli, Nick Dacos. But like Jeremy Cameron might just be the best football player in the world. He's just... It's not just the stats. You can just see, like, the way he field kicks is... I just said Jordan Dawson's arguably the best kick in the comp. Jeremy Cameron would be in that conversation too. And to do that as a key forward who is as dominant a key forward target threat as anyone, to then also be maybe the best field kick in the league.
Plays in the centre bounce sometimes as well.
Yeah, they have him as a rover in the centre bounce because he
plays on the wing.
Yeah, just picks the ball up from his feet that cleanly and so good with his hands. There isn't a flaw in Jeremy Cameron's game. Maybe he doesn't tackle too hard, except they don't want him to. They just want him to stay healthy and fit.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of pressure forwards in there doing that work. He's just a dream player for any team. You hate that Geelong have him, but I had him as my number one this week.
So you didn't have Cozzy Pickett?
It was for personal reasons.
Okay, I was going to say 5 goals, 4. It could have been about 7 or 8 goals. Usually struggles against the Swans. The commentators were mentioning, I heard, that it's his weakest performance against any team in the history of his performances was the Swans.
Yeah.
And it's been in the past. Cunningham and Robbie Fox have had the job. Sam Wicks couldn't get it done at all today. None of the Swans seemed to keep an eye on him. But yeah, 5 goals, 4, 24 disposals. I think it was in the third quarter he kicked 3 goals and completely kicked them out the game. Yeah,
he was fantastic. I just decided to leave that alone. I don't want to deal with the trauma of the current state of the Sydney Swans season.
That's fair, and we're going to get into the Sydney Swans season a little bit later.
Unfortunately.
But we have a surprise segment here, and you don't know about it. It's a segment I'm going to call Start, Bench, Delist. So I'm going to give you 3 players, and if they had to play for your team tomorrow, don't worry about age or anything like that. If they were playing in your team tomorrow, which one would you start, which one would you bench, and who are you going to delist? Okay,
sure.
I'm going to start with 3 midfielders. I've got Zach Merritt, Bailey Smith, and Nick Dacos.
Wow, that's good. I think currently you put Nick Dacos in a team, there's a good chance he gets tagged, but we see that doesn't do too badly for Collingwood. It's been freeing up some of their other midfielders. He's clearly the best player out of the 3, so I'll start Nick Dacos. Mm-hmm. On current form, Merritt and Bailey Smith are both probably top 10 midfielders in the league at the moment. I'll bench Bailey Smith. I think he's just at his absolute peak right now. He's burst out like maybe no other player has this year. And yeah, obviously that means you have to delist someone, and you've thrown me 3 elite players, so delist
That
Zach
is the
Merritt.
aim of the game. Key forwards: Charlie Curnow, Jeremy Cameron, Jesse Hogan.
Start Jeremy Cameron.
Yeah.
I'll bench Charlie Curnow because of what he can do around the ground, and not just scoring goals. But Jesse Hogan, probably those are the 3 best tall forwards in the league.
I like it. I'll move down back now. Darcy Moore, Harris Andrews, and Callum Wilkie.
Okay, I find that a little bit easier.
Okay.
On form this season, Harris Andrews has been one of the best key defenders over the last 5 years or so. This season has not been strong for him.
I agree.
They have I think a relatively good advanced stat. It's a good indicator, which is contested defensive one-on-one win percentage. And yeah, while the best key defenders in the league, you're Jacob Wiederings and Sam Taylor, who are 2 of the lowest, are like 11%, and Sam Taylor's at something silly like 4%. Harris Andrews is up like in the middle of the pack at like 25%. So I don't know what's happening, but he's not quite getting it done like he always does. So I'll not play him, and then I'll bench Darcy Moore and start Callum Wilkie. I think Callum Wilkie, one of the more underappreciated key backs in the league, did get his All-Australian blazer, but it doesn't get talked about very often.
I like it. I think next one will be quite quick. Actually, up to you. Max Gawn, Tristan Sherry, Tom De Koning.
In that order.
Yeah,
order.
I thought so. Moving to small forwards. I got Jack Higgins, Isaac Rankin, and Jamie Elliott.
Jamie Elliott has been maybe the player of the last 3 weeks, along with Jeremy Cameron. It's awesome that he's just found he seems to just always find different peaks in his career. But he is so good. Isaac Rankin has been playing a different role to the other 2, but as much as I absolutely love Jack Higgins, I guess he'll be the D-list, but he's been so good this year. He's probably, I'm going to start Isaac Rankin, bench Jamie Elliott, and D-list Jack Higgins.
I was interested what you were going to do there.
You know how much I love Jack Higgins. I've been talking up
Jack
Jack Higgins a lot, but Jamie, on current form, Jamie Elliott looks like he's going to kick 6 every game.
I like it. Medium-sized forwards I've got now.
Yep.
I've got Toby Green, Ben Long, and Cameron Zerha.
I think Toby Green and Ben Long are about the same size as the others, but they play taller because they're
Yeah.
good in the air. Ben Long, I think, is just a unit. So who was the third one? Cam Zerha. He'll have to be the D-list because I think the other two are so good. Toby Green, obviously, we know he can be as good a small forward as we've seen in our lifetimes. No diss to Eddie Betts and Cyril Rioli. Okay, see, I think too long about this stuff. Ben Long has been amazing, but on this season he's been better than Toby Green. You're saying this right after...
Arguably all Australian.
Yeah, right. On Toby Green's last game, obviously, he was better. I'm going to start Ben Long. He's probably the best mark for someone that's small forward height going around. He just seems to clunk everything. Doesn't matter how contested. So I'll start Ben Long.
Testament to him just to be in the conversation.
Yes.
Half-backs. I got Daniel Rioli, Lockie Whitfield, and Jordan Clark.
I'll definitely delist Daniel Rioli. I don't think he's at the same level as the other two, while he's definitely has the potential to be. Lockie Whitfield doesn't do a lot of defensive work. He's basically he's like their engine at the back. He starts all of their attack, but he doesn't do a lot of defensive work, which is why as much as he stats-wise might look the best halfback in the league, I definitely think that Jordan Clark is more valuable to Fremantle than Whitfield is to GWS, because Jordan Clark is really, really, really good defensively as well. So I'll start Jordan Clark and bench Whitfield.
Okay. Half forwards, I've got Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner, and Christian Petrarca.
Wow. I'm going to start Isaac Heaney, obviously. Swans are not playing good football, but Heaney is not the reason for that. He's just kicked 3 goals with 20-something touches playing forward time. Chad Warner, I'd say the same. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to start Heaney, bench Warner. I know that that's very likely a lot of Swans bias in that, but I do think that Warner and Heaney are not the issue. I'm very happy to talk badly about a lot of players in the Swans list, but probably not those two. Petrarca's playing great footy at the moment, but I'll put him in D-list.
I've got some teams now.
Okay.
So, rebuilding teams. I got Richmond, North Melbourne, West Coast.
As in, which team would I want to rebuild with right now? You definitely think North Melbourne. That just the personnel they have, we thought that this year would show us that they're a step multiple steps above West Coast and Richmond, but that's not what we're seeing with the results. In fact, we're seeing Richmond look a step above North somehow, when Richmond have been completely bled of all their personnel. Richmond seem to have players coming through, just impressing, good culture going around, but purely based on the personnel that we see, North have a chance to click and make finals much sooner, so I'm going to take North. Definitely bench Richmond. It looked like Richmond would be the D-list at the start of the year, but West Coast to just look a little bit hopeless, so I'm going to D-list West Coast.
I really thought you were going to put Richmond at the top.
Yeah.
Next, I've said building, but I've said Sydney, Carlton, Freo.
Sydney have made 2 grand finals of the last 3.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney, Carlton, Freo. Definitely D-list Carlton. Feel very confidently about that. I think that their list is very top-heavy for one, and Michael Voss doesn't look like he's going to be going anywhere, and I really just don't think he's a good coach. I think he might be a great motivator. I think Carlton seem to play with a lot of heart in big games. They always seem to be competing against good teams, often, but I don't like their system, and I don't think Voss is going anywhere. So I'm going to delist Carlton, and I'll bench Freo, who have now hit some form, and I'll start Sydney. I mean, they're playing really badly at the moment. You look big picture, though. It's 2 grand finals in 3 years. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be back next year with a couple of personnel changes.
I like it. Next, I've said the fringe of the finals contenders. I've said Adelaide, Gold Coast, and Hawthorn.
I think they are definitely Gold Coast has proven to be well beyond a fringe, and they've been as good as anyone this year. So I'm gonna. Hawthorn, we know how electric they are. I just saw an incredible stat that I showed Aiden, which is that in in Hawthorn's last 36 games, they're 16-4 with Will Day, and they're 6 wins, 10 losses without Will Day. So not that has much to do with this, but Hawthorn have the best list out of the 3, but Gold Coast are really, really good. Okay, I'm going to start Hawthorn. You said Adelaide? Delist Adelaide, they're really exciting, but so are the other two, and I think the other two just have a much more developed list. So I'll start Hawthorn, bench Gold Coast, and Delist Adelaide.
Okay, and last one, I said flag contenders. I've got Collingwood, Western Bulldogs, and Brisbane.
Wow. There's only one obvious choice to me, which seems absolutely crazy, and it's Delist Brisbane. They've just beaten Hawthorn with a big performance, but that was the first time this year that I've been very impressed by Brisbane performance. I think they've been underwhelming in a weird way while they sit like top 2 on the ladder. This probably is just really, really dumb, but purely eye test, I think Collingwood and Bulldogs look better. Bulldogs, I thought, obviously bad kicking is bad footy, but something I said to Aiden was I thought the Bulldogs were much the better team than Geelong until like 5 minutes to go in the game when Geelong kicked a couple of goals, but Bulldogs were just really inaccurate, had about 12 more scoring shots in the loss or something crazy. I think the Bulldogs are phenomenal and very, very stacked. So I'll start Collingwood. I think, too old doesn't mean anything. They're just going to keep producing. Bench the Bulldogs and delist Brisbane.
I like it. And that's it. That's it for that segment. Let us know what you think of that. If you want us to do it again, I had a lot of fun making it.
And we'll jump into the hits and misses for this round. My hit for this week is not a team or a player. It is that this was the round of the small forward, and it's kind of been the season of the small forward. Looks like Aiden had the same hit, which is kind of crazy. But we've already mentioned some of the performances, but Jamie Elliott just kicking bags of goals. Josh Rochelle, who's so exciting with the fans as well, just comes out and kicks 5. Cozzy Pickett tearing apart a game and winning it with his own foot with 5 goals, 9 shots at goal. Toby Green, best on ground with 3 goals, 28. Callum Archie popping out with 4 goals. Murphy Reid looks like he'll win Rising Star, kicks 4 goals against Port. And Paul Curtis taking 2 speckies in 30 seconds. I just thought it was, everywhere you looked, it was just a small forward having an elite performance.
Yeah, and there were a lot more that went. I think Riley West is having a severely underrated season in that Bulldog side, where it's really hard to stand out. Yeah, I've said the exact same thing. We don't really communicate before. There is a little bit of communication where he's like, "Oh, what's your hit?" And you don't really want to give it away, but I'm like, "Oh, there's no way you're gonna have mine." But yeah, we've got the exact same thing. But yeah, Riley West, Shea Bolton, Isaac Rankin. There's a lot more all around the competition. But yeah, shout out to all of them.
Jump us into your miss.
My miss, I think we're at risk of the top 8 having little competition and potentially being wrapped up a little bit early this year. It feels like there's a distance between the top 9 and the rest, just for me in terms of performance. And in the past few years, and especially during the podcast last year, we raved about how competitive the entire ladder was. And with even a few rounds to go, there were about 13 or 14 teams that could still make it. I remember you making the power rankings. Yeah. It was still really tough. But I feel as though the upper teams have almost pulled away from the rest of the pack. And you might not see it the same way, but I just see the top 8 and Fremantle and see what happens. That's why I said top 9. But maybe if the Swans push late when they get players back, but I think we're just at risk of just losing a bit of competition for the lower half.
Yeah, I would actually agree quite a bit. I haven't really thought too much about that. And I think we're just assuming that Essendon, who sit 6 and 4, are just nowhere near those 9
with a
teams.
game in hand, I just can't see it. They just aren't playing good footy.
Some people, if anyone sees this, if any Essendon supporters, you might be outraged with where I have them on my power rankings at the end of the episode, as they sit 6 wins, 4 losses. But it's the biggest lie that a ladder has ever told. But the one team that I'd argue for is Melbourne, who started 0-5 and have won 5 of their last 6. Yeah. They're the only team in the bottom half absolutely charging. So I think Melbourne are definitely up there in a top 10 teams based on quality of football. But yeah, I agree that there's probably only 10 teams realistically in it.
But even with 10, it's a lot less than we've had the last couple of years, especially at this time in the year.
100%.
Which is a little unfortunate to see.
Yeah, my miss is team focused on our love, the Sydney Swans, who it seems to be something different every week. Sometimes we've been blaming it on some bad goal kicking recently. Before that, we were blaming it on injuries. First couple of rounds of the year, we were blaming it on new coach trying to adjust. There's been a lot of excuses this year, but it's just not up to standard. There's no excuses this time around. They got absolutely dragged around the field by Melbourne, who really just had their way. There was no resistance or no strong resistance at any point. You had Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner kind of trying their best, and I didn't really see much else. And you look around, and suddenly when they're not playing at their best, you look around and see these weaknesses in the list. As I don't want to target players in a really rude way, but Joel Hamling should not be in the 22 for a finals contending team or a team that was in the grand final last year. Obviously, there are still some injuries, but a guy like Logan McDonald, who's fit right now and just isn't getting it done in the VFL, a high draft pick with a lot of potential. Other guys that just aren't showing up. There's got to be some sort of introspection about why we're not getting the best out of our players at the moment. It's just this season. It's no longer than that. Obviously, we were in the grand final last year, and it might have a lot to do with a new coach and dealing with a grand final loss as devastating as it was. But they got to look introspectively about why they're not getting the best out of the players and try their best to fix it. Don't know if it can change by the end of this year. I'm an optimist, so I still have hopes of making finals, but it's not looking good.
And the one thing we've always associated with the Swans is that Bloods culture, the effort. And it feels like in the last few games especially, it feels like that effort just hasn't been there. And the discipline as well, that's becoming a real issue. The fact that McInerney's suspended, Amadi's suspended, Mills is probably going to be suspended.
And on top of that, we've had by far the most suspensions this year. I think twice as many as the next most of any team.
And they've all been deserved. It's not like they've been contentious at all.
Completely agree. I think like certain players have gotten off with how many weeks they got. And on top of that, we've given away...
Melican's also currently suspended.
Yeah, we've broken records the last 2 weeks for how many 50-metre penalties we've given out in a 2-week stretch. So to be dealing with losses and trying to fight back from that and just be giving away 50-metre penalties, so many goals directly from 50-metre penalties, it's so indicative. The fact that it's been back-to-back games, so indicative of a lack of discipline.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, Melbourne had double the Swans scoring shots, and you don't really see that. You don't associate that with the Swans team. It's always fight till the end, always contest the ball, but they were completely overran in this game, which was a little disappointing to see. And you'd probably say now it's probably nailed in the coffin, season over with Freo winning, Melbourne winning. They just seem to be pulling away from the Swans. I mean,
I'm not saying season over here. I never say season over while it's mathematically possible.
I mean, they've got Richmond next week. Adelaide next week at home, which they need to win. Then Richmond at the MCG the week after, leading into the bye. So I think the only way this season can get back on track, if that's possible, is they have to go win-win. Yeah. And they have to win until they get players back. Because we know Goulden's not too far away, Papley's not too far away. But they're going to I think there's just going to be too much to do second half of the season when you really need to be banking the wins.
Yep. Absolutely. Very sad state of play to be a Swans fan at the moment. And now I think we'll jump into your footy pyramid.
Yeah, so the footy pyramid's starting to really take shape. And when that happens, it means there's usually less changes, where a player has to put in a couple good performances or a couple below average performances to move up or down. And I'll say that and probably make a lot of changes next week. But this week there aren't too many changes, so I'm just going to run through it. We have 2 outs. Zach Butters is out of the pyramid. Really struggled the last few weeks. Teams have realised you tag Zach Butters, you pretty much tag Port Adelaide out of the game. Isaac Rankin's also out of the pyramid. That's not due to performance. It's just due to his teammate, actually, I think, outperforming him. Jordan Dawson's in the pyramid.
Good.
Just having a ridiculous, like you mentioned earlier.
Correct decision.
A ridiculous set of performances now. Can play anywhere on the ball. Don't have to go into any more detail. Joining him in the 5th tier is Patrick Cripps. Again...
Oh, so we got someone jumping into the 4th tier, don't we?
We do. Again, he's playing well. He still kicked a goal in 25, but I just think there have been guys that have been better than him. Jesse Hogan's in the 5th tier. Zach Merritt's in the 5th tier. And Sam Taylor's in the 5th tier. Moving up into the 4th tier, Nick Dacos is going to remain in the 4th tier. I know we had a ridiculous amount of touches, but didn't really touch it for the first 3 quarters, and then North seemed to drop the tag, and I think he had some ridiculous 4th quarter and stacked up the touches. Noah Anderson's going to move up a tier. He's now sitting in the 4th tier after an incredible performance. Jeremy Cameron, who was not in the pyramid before, is going to enter the pyramid.
How was that going on in the pyramid?
You know what? He started the season slowly, and he's really kicked on the last few weeks. So
I would have argued that he should be higher in the pyramid. I would have argued he should jump into the 2nd tier.
Just wait till you hear the names. You tell me where you put him.
I'll tell you exactly. Okay? But
And joining him at last, rounding off the 4th tier, is Tristan Sherry. Again, just stacking performance after performance.
Bull.
Moving into the 3rd tier. You tell me. If you think he should be higher than someone, you tell me.
Okay.
Liberatore.
Jeremy Cameron should be higher.
Okay, Liberatore has had a ridiculous performance. 11 out of 11 games this season. Okay. Max Gawn.
No.
Okay, and Bailey Smith.
But I would have Max Gawn maybe top of the pyramid, definitely second tier.
Okay. And Bailey Smith is joining him is the rounding out the third tier.
Yeah.
Into the second tier, Isaac Heaney's going to remain there.
Okay.
And Marcus Bontempelli's moving down into the second tier. Which means we have a new head of the pyramid, and a guy I never thought I'd ever see on top of the pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Ed Richards sitting on top of the pyramid. I think
it's Ed Richards soiled.
I think last week you mentioned that it's got to be really close to the top of the pyramid between Bont and Ed Richards, and I think he's just put in another insane performance. He's even picking up the tag now and really fighting through it, still picking up goals. The way he breaks from stoppage and to stand out in that Bulldogs team every week after week, and it's just ridiculous for me. So he's top of the pyramid now, best player in the competition for me. Yeah,
in the last 2 years when Clayton Oliver's missed some footy and he's not been at his best, the league's felt really out of balance without Ranger being an elite midfielder.
I had no idea where you were going with that. I had no idea.
The league has just felt out of whack, and now that we have a Ranger up there with the elites of the midfields in the league feels back.
I love that. I think he really fought his way. Didn't start in the pyramid, took him a while to get in it, but I think he's moved up a tier almost every single week in this pyramid because he keeps just putting in performance after performance, and he's just shoo-in for the All-Australian team at the moment. Yeah, he's one of the most scary guys, kicking inside 50. He's getting some of the most clearances in the league, just scoring. He's both ways as well. Yeah. Working hard without the footy, kicking a goal or two a game. He's everything you want out of a modern midfielder. Yeah, 100%. Now we'll jump into the best segment, the power rankings. Last week's power rankings are right here. And we start off this week with the bottom three, who have not changed in I don't know how many weeks, and then St Kilda sitting in 15th. The loss against West Coast last week, another loss this week. It wasn't an embarrassing performance, but as Dan Does Footy put it, Daniel Gorringe, Ross Lyon just doesn't like playing entertaining footy. I don't know exactly what Daniel Gorringe said, except Ross Lyon, it's so strange that he's not changing his brand. He has some real dynamic players in the team, and they're not being utilised. Did you see the little fight between the Ross Lyon and Damien Hardwick after the game? I did. The Ross Lyon spat where it's like the AFL's Nepo baby, and then he said, "Just worry about your own house." And a bit interesting. Ross Lyon's always been a little bit sassy, but that's what we love about him. Ross the boss. Always a little feud here and there. Next up is Port Adelaide. Moving down, and jumping up above them is Essendon. So Essendon, while 13 is low, all right? So I've moved them up. They're still very low for where they sit on the ladder, obviously. At 10th on the ladder with 6 wins, 4 losses. As we've mentioned week after week, they've had the easiest run in the league so far. They've gotten it done against all the teams below them, but anytime they've played a team above them on the ladder, they have looked down with West Coast, North and Richmond. So I think there's a really clear gap between Essendon and those top teams. I don't really see hopes for them in terms of winning a final or anything like that, so I'm putting them in 13. And you can say, they're also a game behind, but that game in hand is against Gold Coast. Yeah. So we can just ignore that. Yeah, they'll get crushed. Yeah. Next up is Carlton, who I've talked about previously in this episode. Lots of top-end talent, maybe not a super balanced list, and dealing with a lot of injuries. And as I say over and over, don't like their system, especially defensively. Next up is the Swans, who have just sort of been yo-yoing a little bit. Every time they win, I try my best to throw them as high as I can in the power rankings. The optimistic Swans fan that I am, but very quickly starting to lose hope for this season. Fremantle in 10. I had such high hopes for Fremantle at the start of the year. In our preseason predictions, I predicted Freo to be in the top 4 this season. And I still think they have the potential to play that kind of footy, and now they're starting to find some consistently strong footy. It's 2 solid wins in a row against Port Adelaide and against GWS, both pretty big wins. And if they keep this rolling, there's no reason they can't get a final spot and cause some havoc. Another team making a charge recently, but a longer charge, is Melbourne. 0-5 and now 5-6. I don't really get how they're doing it, to be honest, because the same issues that we have mentioned about their list, not having a dominant forward that's a threat, that has kind of been resolved through Jake Melksham, except comparatively to other finals contending teams, it's not a strong part of their list. And then also an aging team
with Lever not being consistently playing, May and Oliver not at their best. Also kind of improving with Clayton Oliver finding some form.
But I think Max Gawn could get West Coast in the 8.
Yeah, Max Gawn is, in my opinion, the most influential player in the league.
I agree.
Yeah, it's around the midfield, obviously, he's the most influential player in the league, and then behind the ball too. Once it goes forward, he's maybe the best key back in the league, the way he just sits behind the ball and clunks everything. You just can't send it to a pack where Max Gawn is if you're the opposition. So the influence that he has is enormous, very good. Next up, GWS. And now it's just the teams that lie in the 8 on the actual ladder, that sit in the top 8 in the power rankings. And GWS, very important win for them this week. Sitting in 7 and staying in 7 is Adelaide, who got a win that they expected to get against West Coast. Now, Hawthorn in 6.
Struggling a bit,
yes. And, where we start to see some midfield cracks. We know that they're dynamic across the ground. They have a really solid defence and good small forwards. Getting dominated around the clearance and the contested ball. Wilday being out, huge factor. And when you look around at the teams that are going to sit above them here, and you look at their midfield, it's like, okay, I'll just mention the next couple of teams, Brisbane and Bulldogs. You look at Lachie Neale, Josh Dunkley, Hugh McCluggage, Will Ashcroft. What the heck? Western Bulldogs, they have the best midfield in the league with 7 guys running through there that would walk into Hawthorn's starting 3 in their midfield. So it's something that they might have to find someone that's going to be really strong in there. Maybe see if Dylan Moore can be a 80% CBA midfielder until Will Dagger comes back. But yeah, they're going to have to sort out some midfield issues, whether it means throwing an extra in there around the stoppage or something.
Did you see the Hawthorn-Brisbane game? Were you able to watch that?
Part of it.
Did you see the crackdown on high tackles? How it looked like in the game, where Hawthorn was they've got the highest free kick differential, especially winning the high free kicks. But they called about 3 or 4 in the game of them ducking, and then
they called ducking free kicks.
Yeah, they were calling ducking free kicks and then holding the ball straight.
Were they
away.
Correct calls? Do you reckon?
Some were.
I
Some
love
could
to
have
see
gone the
it.
other way, but it feels like they're almost trying to force them out of it.
Yeah.
Which it looked like in that game, especially. So even though it was almost like it was focused on Hawthorn, because some of the Brisbane players ducked and they almost just looked past it. I don't know whether it was an actual thing or just happened to happen in this specific game, but there were quite a few in that game where I could pick out. There was a couple with Dylan Moore especially, where he just picked up the ball, dropped his head a tiny bit, and then got pinholed of the ball.
Yeah, I call more than anyone else for a crackdown on ducking, and I honestly, even if they go a little bit over the top, I don't hate it. But it is a bit weird to just be doing it on one round in a random week.
Yeah, it was just a lot. There were just 3 or 4, which you don't really see in the games. Usually they'll just pay the high tackle or they'll pay no prior. Yeah. They were all just being given holding the ball. So I don't know.
What you'd prefer to see is the AFL or the Umpires Association make a statement that they're going to be if they judge that it was a duck and that that the player with the ball initiated the head-high contact, it'll be called holding the ball because that's prior opportunity and it's not a high tackle. So if they make that announcement, I'd love to see that, and then we could see it across the whole league. But yeah, Brisbane and Bulldogs, who this might be a little bit controversial to have Bulldogs in the top 4 still after their loss, but I thought they played really good footy. I think Geelong are an incredible side who are about to be above them on these power rankings.
Especially at home as well.
Yeah, and I think Bulldogs were better than them for the large chunk of that game. Bad kicking is bad footy. Like I said earlier, they were inaccurate in front of goal, but that is very fixable compared to some of the issues with these teams below them. Geelong in 3rd, and we just know there might be fluctuations in the ladder. They're not going to finish top of the ladder because they're going to rotate players and rest players and not always play at their best. But we know that when it comes to finals footy, they're the scariest team to play probably. Gold Coast in 2nd. Didn't like it all, Aiden, earlier, where you named them as a fringe top 8 contender. Hated to see that. I think that they are a fully fledged premiership contender this year. I don't know what the betting odds look like, but I think that they should be maybe top 4 in those odds because this is a team getting it done against good teams, against bottom of the table teams, apart from Richmond, and against mid-table teams. They are just getting it done week after week. But Collingwood sits at 1. Another win against North Melbourne, and they're they seem to be the iron team at the moment.
Professionally getting it done week after week.
Yeah. So that's the power rankings for this week. Let us know what you think.
We'll see you on the next one.